You know the Easties can't shut up about East Side, West Side. Are they right or are there just more of them around? Is it the fumes from the landing F-15s making them delusional? I will insult the Westies, but you guys are probably watching the Malaysian FYP. And so how did two halves of a country so tiny develop so distinctly from each other? And why? The first thing we need to determine is, how do we divide this country into two? Where does the West begin and where does the East end? Geographical boundaries like this river separates the city from the East, but where the West truly begins is a little less clear. If we zoom out and take a look at the country as it developed over time, you'll notice that the East side is much older. And that's because, simply put, the East is much flatter than the West. Hills and valleys dominated the western half of the country, while the eastern side of Singapore was flatter, perfect for a growing settlement to expand into. The city grew along the east coast, and districts like Joo Chiat and Siglap started to form in the early 1920s as the rich and wealthy moved there to find their own peace and quiet. Wealthy Peranakans built their ornate shophouses here, and with the rich came the services for the rich. Theatres, restaurants and entertainment venues moved in, and the area continued to grow. The East would have stayed an enclave of the rich if it wasn't for the Great Reclamation that created land that was used to build HDBs. Along came Marine Parade, Bedok and Tampines, where most of the Easties now stay in. With Mount Faber in the way and the entire area from Jurong to Clementi a large mangrove reserve, the hilly, marshy southwestern coast saw less commercial development and stayed rural for much longer than the East. That was until 1959, where the growing number of unemployed Singaporeans meant that something needed to be done. By this time, Singapore's redevelopment was in full swing and the transformation of the West finally began. To conquer the Wild West, in 1961, the Nature Reserves Ordinance was amended to create Jurong Industrial Estate on the west bank of the Pandan River, once Singapore's largest mangrove reserve. The rest of it was de-gazetted as a nature reserve in 1968, and Jurong Industrial Estate expanded east to create a bustling hub for manufacturing. Apartment blocks like this were built by the Jurong Town Corporation to house workers who moved here to be nearer to their workplaces at the Jurong Industrial Estate. By 1972, Jurong became a massive town along the west coast, and within a few years, the MRT connected it to the city centre, ending its remote nature. But what makes the site best? We spoke to some fellow Singaporeans to find out why their site is better to them. I like the food options in the East. The West has more nature and it's quieter.
I love the character of the East.
I'm from Malaysia. The people are nicer in the West.
But you know,
these are just personal preferences. So really, does that mean that no one side is truly better than the other? After all, a hiker will not survive in the parkless East, and a supper enthusiast will not survive on Ke Kou Mian every night. This is not a cop-out, okay? For the truth is, the north side is the best. And this is why Yishun is the best town in Singapore.